Good morning, Sasha. Today I'm going to talk to you about a quiet time that I had a couple of days ago, 2 Samuel chapter 3. I know I've talked to you some about kind of what I'm doing through Samuel and just following David. And so Saul's died, his sons have died, all except for one. So one of his sons is now the king of most of Israel, though David has now been sort of installed as the king of Judah because he's kind of been sort of in that area. What happens is there's lots of things going on here, but there's one of the generals of Saul's army, gets angry because he's accused of doing some stuff with the concubine of Saul, which I guess he didn't do, and he gets so angry that he says, "I'm going to go, install David as the king, just as it was prophesied." Which I'm not quite sure how biblically that how that works out, but whatever. And so he goes to talk to David. Then he leaves sort of in peace, I think is how it's described. But the problem is some of David's men had fought with this person. I think it was Abner. Anyway, and he had killed one of their brothers. And so they kind of call him back and then they murder him because they're angry. They're trying to get revenge for their brother. And it's interesting, I think, David's response here, because David doesn't try to hide what happened. In fact, he kind of has this big funeral and he like buries them, and then he kind of says, "Oh, a great man in Israel died today." And so, it makes you wonder, maybe David had a prior relationship with this person, like maybe they had been friends when they were both serving Saul. Perhaps I don't really know. I didn't see any evidence of that, but it would make sense. David, a highly respected general in Saul's army, this guy, was clearly leading Saul's army when Saul died. So probably they at least knew of each other or maybe had interacted. But David kind of buries him and kind of says good things about him, tears his clothes in mourning, but he makes it very clear, hey, listen, I didn't kill this guy. Like I didn't murder him. His blood's not on my hands, but he doesn't really try to hide it. So I thought that was kind of an interesting where Saul really struck me as a kind of king that tried to hide things, right? Where when he had made sacrifices, when he was supposed to destroy everything, he told Samuel, "Hey, I did everything God said." And then that's the whole line of, then what is the bleating of sheep that I hear in my ears, right? From Samuel. And then when there was supposed to be a sacrifice made, and Samuel was supposed to come, Saul, the men are leaving. Saul's really concerned, and he makes a sacrifice, and then he makes an excuse. Well, you didn't come. So I don't see David making excuses. I do kind of see a little bit of his, hey, this wasn't really on me. Um, but at the same time, kind of what he's doing, there's a verse, I think it's around 20, 23, where it says what the king, meaning David, did pleased the people. And then it says, indeed, everything that he did pleased the people. And I think it's really interesting just to see how, David makes these moves and he makes these decisions. And, we'll hear later on, a man after God's own heart. But I really feel like what you're just sort of seeing is that he makes kind of the right call at the right time. We talk a little bit about there's the art and the science of leadership. I think the science is knowing the right things, right? I mean, knowing I need to be competent at my job, knowing that I need to how to lead. That's all kind of the mechanics of leading, right? Being out in front of the troops, not trying to set yourself up above them, being willing to get dirty when you have to, but understanding your role versus their role and that kind of thing. I feel like that's sort of the science of leadership. I think the art of leadership a lot of times is kind of knowing that timing, right? So there are times when you don't have time to kind of be with the troops and do what they're doing, and they don't expect you to always be there. But when you are available, if you're, I've seen officers where, well, there's some manual labor to do, and oh, I got to go to this meeting or that meeting or whatever. And the higher you go in rank, the more meetings you'll have and the fewer opportunities you'll really have. But when it's maintenance Monday or whatever it is, like, learning about your vehicles. Hey, can you come teach me the preventative maintenance checks of this vehicle? Like, I would go through them, and it was actually required, but I thought it was a great technique because it got your hands dirty, you learned about your equipment, and it also really kind of showed like you weren't above everyone else. And so, sort of knowing when is the right time to do that, I think that's the art of leadership. And so that's the one I think that's a lot harder to understand, a lot harder to do, but it's actually very meaningful, and it's where you see some of your better leaders. All right. So take care. I love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too.
Oh, mom says she loves you too. Bye-bye.